Hello, humans. Today we are I'm calling this episode Jam with fellow reinventor Cindy Ingram. We're going to have Cindy on later in the year because she is in the editing stages of her book. And we have been in the writing room together for the last year plus, writing every single day. And she watched me go through publishing my book, and I'm watching her get to the just before publishing stages. But today, we're going to talk a little bit more about reinvention. So welcome, Cindy. And instead of introducing who you are right now, I'm going to get to that last, but I want to play a little game. Okay. I don't know what age, it doesn't really matter, but your first career, okay, I know we're not our careers, but Cindy and I both that was the vehicle for our most recent reinvention. So I'm going to stick with the theme of career vehicle. If you were to introduce the Cindy in her not first job, but like first work, first career, who would you be introducing?
Oh, good question. I would be introducing a art museum educator. Yeah. And
anything on the inside, because I think it will come up that reinvention shows up on the outside, but it's usually because things happen on the inside.
Okay. What was on the inside? This will be interesting because the inside in terms of my career is really kind of similar to where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. I had a really deep passion for art, really deep connections to art that I couldn't necessarily understand, but I knew I needed to be near it. Mm-hmm. And I also had a very natural gift for teaching. And I'd always liked teaching, and any opportunity I got to do it, if I felt the most comfortable and the most me that I could feel at a time in my life where I was like riddled with anxiety. I was, when we talk about my book, that it's in the book, but it's like filled with shame and anxiety and things. But when I was teaching and when I was with art, I did not have all of that anxiety and shame. So anyway, so that's why I chose, to work in museums, because I felt like I could share that passion for art with other people, and that I could get to be around art all day and work with art all day. And that just was a dream, even though it didn't make very much money and jobs were hard to get. I didn't really care.
What I notice when you share that is that you use the word felt a lot. The way art made you feel, and you got jobs in museums, so that you could feel close to art. And I think that's so interesting because to me, it shows a certain level of self-trust to choose those kinds of things when we might think we need to do something different. Just planting a random little flag of noticing there.
Yeah, I love that because at the time too, I was a very straight A student, top of my class, very smart. I was very good at math. And so when I chose to get my degree in art history, people, were kind of looking at me weird. Because, I could make a lot more money and be a lot more successful if I'd gone into engineering or, I was considering economics at one point, but I have always been, I have to feel right in whatever I'm doing. It has to feel right. And that art history felt right. It just felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah. So, I think that's a good North Star. And I'm glad you were able, I'm kind of thinking back and I've never jumped anything on purpose that felt wrong, that I knew it felt wrong. And usually those are often catalysts. At some point it's this now is starting to suck my soul. Yeah. So just honoring those of us out there that are in tune with that somatic knowing, even if it at times wasn't fully developed, it was just a little kernel, but we held that little kernel. Okay. What's the next is there a next reinvention that was more dramatically different before we get to where I met you?
Yeah, I went from museum education to teaching in a classroom, mainly because I had gotten laid off from a job.
Okay.
So that is not a big jump. I mean, all of my career has been very, very similar. I taught elementary, and I've taught middle school art, and I taught online. So that was, it wasn't necessarily a reinvention. It was just couldn't get a job in a museum because there's not very many museum jobs out there.
And then I do think it is a big leap. I know a lot of your peers and colleagues have done this, and I've seen quite a few of my own. It's a big leap to move from the classroom to being self-employed. Was that the next structural reinvention? So let's talk about that. What was the context or the job, and then what happened inside to allow you to do that?
Okay. Yeah. So this is my whole book. Okay. I was teaching, and then I had my first daughter. Mm-hmm. I have 2 daughters, and really having her made me take a really kind of not a hard look, but just a look at my life to see, am I raising this kid into a life where she has a mom that she can be proud of, where she has a life that she loves, that is, and at the time my life was very, very small. It was very much like I had been healing from all this anxiety and stuff, and I was teaching, but I love to teach, but I don't necessarily love to be a teacher because it's exhausting, and I have a lot of sensory overwhelm and things like that, which I many years later learned was ADHD. But it was really exhausting for me, and I'm also like very much of I like a lot of novelty and newness, and I like to make a difference, and I felt like every day was kind of the same, and there was no growth in that career. Yeah. You just end the year, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, do it again. And I was like, I can't see myself doing that, but I didn't know what else to do because I couldn't be a museum educator because that pays lower than a teacher, and there's no jobs. Teaching is not very exciting. So even at the time I was like, what am I even going to do? So I considered being a software developer. Like I was just like, what am I going to do? But then one day, I had the idea. I am a serial entrepreneur. My entire life, it was always like, oh, I'm going to do this. And one time I had a whole art cafe planned out. And then one time I was going to sell woodblock print cards that I was going to make and sell. And this was like before Etsy even existed. So I don't even know where I would have sold them. But there was always something. Even when I was a kid, I would sell like presidential campaign posters to my neighbors during the elections. Like I was always trying to sell something and I never was happy in any job because I don't like people telling me what to do. I like to be in charge. So I've always known I was an entrepreneur. I have always known, I just didn't know what. And then, what prompted it is I listened to a podcast, and this was in 2014. I listened to a podcast, it was a woman interviewing a blogger, and this blogger had just gone on a year-long trip around the world with her family. And then she worked from wherever she was at because she was a blogger. She was making money, supporting her family, and then she could work from anywhere. And they went from place to place for an entire year. And I was just like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I want? How do I make this happen? And I was like, okay, well, the problems as I see it is I have a lot of debt. I have a very low paying job. At the time I was teaching online. I was working from home, which was great because I could be with my daughter, but I was, 2 daughters at this point, 2014. I needed to be able to have the freedom to work from home or work from anywhere. And then I physically needed the stamina to be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
Turns out there's a fourth thing I needed. I didn't know that I needed was that family that would be willing to do such a thing, which it turns out I don't have that either. But that's a whole other story.
Making one of those decisions when they're like, what the hell did you do? And you're like, that's good. And they're like, well, yeah, I was there.
Yeah. So
it scared the shit out of my husband for a few years. Yep.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm going to make an online business. Because I learned online businesses existed through this person. I mean, I guess I knew they existed because I had like 5 blogs by this point. I was always starting blogs for different reasons. But this was the first time I was like, oh, I'm going to start one that will make money. And I'm going to replace. And I was like, by the time my youngest daughter turns 10, I'm going to be able to do this trip around the world. My daughter just turned 11, but the youngest just turned 11. And I was like, I'm going to make enough money to replace my salary, my husband's salary. We're going to get rid of all of our debt, and then we're going to, do this trip. That was the goal. And then, almost immediately, I planned a trip. I was like, oh, we got to start traveling more. So I booked a trip, and then I started the website. I had the idea for what it would be on March 31st, 2014. And I wrote my first blog post the next day, had the website built. Like I just, you know me, when I make a decision, it happens immediately. So it started
one of my favorite things about working with you.
Yeah. And so I started a site. It was going to be sort of like a homeschool site because I was homeschooling my daughters at the time. I was about to. And because my oldest has a lot of anxiety, so I didn't think she could handle going to school just yet. So it was going to be homeschool, but like art for homeschoolers. But then I really quickly realized within a matter of months that, teachers need what I'm offering too. And I started realizing all the ways that I taught was different because it came from kind of a museum focus, came from a looking at art focus and talking about it rather than making, that a lot of teachers really need that education because we weren't taught that in school. So then I started it. It was just going to be it was a blog that sold some digital products at first. And then I built a membership site about a year at first. And then I built a membership site about a year and a half later.
Yeah. And then that membership site really blew up from just a blogging, not just, but a blogging site. Yeah. And you ended up with a 7-figure business, staff. Tell us a little bit more what it turned into at the height of your passion for it.
Yeah. So then
I don't want to say at the height of it because it's still out there in the world.
And it was like, how do you define height too? Which is interesting. Like on what standards is height? Yeah.
Yeah.
I started the membership site for art teachers in 2015. I didn't start really making money. My first big launch was 2017. Mm-hmm. That's when I quit my job. I had been working and running the website for doing both for the first 3 years. And then, so I quit my job, kind of had some slow growth there. And then, it was like every year was just a little bit better than the year before. But I, of course, was after this goal that I was in all those like bro marketer crowds and all the.
She said bro marketer. If y'all didn't hear that, you pulled away a little bit. It went away from your microphone.
Oh, I just realized my microphone is kind of high up.
If you don't know what that is, Google the phrase.
Online business bro. There's so many of those guys that they are selling they're selling their method for how to launch things, how to get business, how to make money through their methods. And so I was following their methods, and all of their methods are you got to 10x your business, 10x your business every year, you 10x. And so I had this like $1 million goal in my head. I'm like, I'm gonna have $1 million business. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And I kept working at it, following I even did an entire launch following the scripts of one of these business bros, used his exact scripts, just kind of artified it. and I was like, why was I surprised that did not really work? And it didn't because,
but we're sold that it will.
We're sold that it will.
Right. We're sold that it will. And that there's something wrong with you if it doesn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And, even though I feel like I've detoxed from that, a whole lot, I mean, it still comes up. Even just yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone and I was just like, I couldn't do it. And she was like, you did it. And two, like, I was just like, there's this thing that we're supposed to want and we're supposed to be able to get if we just do these things. And I couldn't do it. And so I just like, I still can kind of feel like a failure, even though I like, don't even have that goal anymore. It's
right.
It's creepy. So I was still kind of in that world trying to reach this the 7-figure business when I joined the same mastermind that I met you in. And that was in 2020. And so I remember so clearly, like, one of the first meetings we had in that mastermind was, I remember saying, I'm not having fun anymore. I haven't teared up saying that right now. And do I need to move my mic down? Is this like,
okay.
I was like, I'm just going to do it even because I'm like, oh, now my mic needs to be moved down. Okay.
No, yeah. I wanted this to be for our audience. Cindy has been my client and a retreat participant. But we're also peers and colleagues. And right now we're not in agreement. We're not under agreement with each other. So I consider us more in the friend and peer and colleague, but there's a soul connection through our reinvention and through our writing practice. Yeah. And so I wanted this to be kind of like somewhat like you and I are sitting on a low stimulation, kind of like we were the day out at the painting retreat, where we were sitting under the shade of the umbrella and we were discussing reinvention. We didn't call it that at the time, but so yeah, you're good. Okay, so
I was like, I'm going to fixate on this for the rest of my life.
Isn't that cute how we left the crying really quick and we went to the microphone that led us off the track? So come back to the crying.
Come back to the crying. I get it. It was. Oh,
that's my new coaching phase. Come back to the crying, please.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember saying I'm not having fun anymore. I used to, when I started my business, I just worked. I didn't make money for years, and I just had such ultimate faith that it would work out. I knew it was a good idea. I knew it was needed. I knew it was using my talents in the exact right way. And so it was so much fun. And then in the sort of businessification of it, in the strategy of it, in the trying to grow of it, in the polishing of it, in the like making it branded and perfect, in the delegating the stuff that I do best to other people, like the content creation and the ideas, like other people were doing that. And like, I was like, there's a profound lack of joy in the work that I'm doing. And so I was at that place where I was like, I was like trying to figure out where I can find that again. And that's when COVID hit. Yeah. So when COVID hit, it was really a blessing for my business and me because it gave me a boost of excitement again, because sitting here with all these teachers at home and I have a product it's a product for our teachers that doesn't involve supplies, because my whole membership is about looking at it and talking about it. So I was like, I am here. Like, this is exactly the right moment for me. And then that's when I did start to get successful. I was really excited. I did a conference right away because our art education conference was canceled. And in the span of 2 weeks, I created a conference that had like 10,000 participants and 50 speakers online. And then, it made 5 figures. And then we created this curriculum, which then made a whole bunch of other money. It got us on the radars of a lot of people, paid off all the debt that I, was wanting to pay off, and bought myself a new house, which we were in the process of wanting to do anyway. But like I didn't reach the 7-figure business. I almost did, but there was in theory, I was about to, but then there was a part, the story of that there was some money that was promised and then were taken away. So that's all. That would have sent me to 7 figures, but I was close. I was close. But it was kind of everything I'd ever wanted, like people were using my kids were getting impacted. Teachers were getting impacted. I felt of service. I was passionate about what we were doing. I was excited about the product. Like it was easy to sell because it was really aligned. And, but then it became like, okay, well, one, how do you keep that up? Have a big year and then like, now what?
Yeah, to keep that up of running a business is a big challenge that I don't think people, the building, there's a like a sexy tension, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the enjoyment of the moment or short season, honestly. And it's not short because it's not still successful, but the dopamine wears off. And then there is, for me, my therapist has helped me realize the responsibility that we take on to maintain and sustain. And I see that exhaust a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners. And all of a sudden, when the responsibility is higher than the joy or the passion, that's when burnout happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And hold on. It was one of those things where my thoughts split into two.
That's okay. Let me bring you back because I want to start. I know we've gone the long way, but I think everybody listening can, we all at whatever age we are, we can look back and see so many different versions of yourselves. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because your very first career, you wanted to be close to art. And then you talked about building this membership site that didn't involve supplies. It was looking at art and talking about it. Mm-hmm. And then you started looking at art and talking about it, not from creating curriculum for teachers and children, but you started doing it with yourself and other adults.
Yes.
And so now, I don't know. I don't know exactly where it lines up with your story, but I remember Cindy came to an art retreat that I did, Expressive Arts Retreat, where we're not painting we're creating art and we're sitting with it and talking about it. It's not about the end result of the art. It's the only thing different than being in a museum is we're the ones slinging the paint on it.
Yeah. Because it was like over the years of running this business, I had gotten to the place where I wasn't doing anything creative anymore. Like I wasn't making the content. I wasn't writing anymore. I've been writing my whole life. And I couldn't even write 2 sentences. I couldn't write. I couldn't even go look at art. I would go to a museum and it would all about be, how can I put this on the website of the business? Like it was all about like sharing it rather than what it brings to me. So it was like all the things that I held most dear. I had been so removed from. And
all of a sudden the art is connected to the business, but you're getting left out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a part of my reinvention too. Okay. And that I just realized that like, wait, what about me? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then, and at the kind of over that time too, I had been slowly kind of developing my philosophy of art, trying to communicate. Like I would have, when I was young, my whole life, I would have these experiences in front of works of art that were just so powerful. I would cry. I would look at it forever. I saw Lion King 12 times at the movie theater when I was in 8th grade. Like there were these things that just moved me so intensely. And so I was trying to help people experience that. And it got to the point where it's like, where people would say that I'm teaching art history, or they'd say I'm teaching art appreciation. I would kind of like cringe. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm doing. But I don't know what I'm doing, but that's not it. I was like, I'm not teaching about the art. I'm not. And so I kept, there was just this thing that was just like boiling underneath. I was like, there is something else here. And I don't know what it is, but there is something deeper. And it wasn't really until I started so I was with that retreat with you in September. I had taken Heather's writing compassionate writer course that summer before. And I started to kind of like think about this book that I would write. And then that's when I started to like really try to figure it out. And I was like, there's just something else. And then I was like, at some point, I had already enrolled in the coaching?
I can't remember the dates. I do know that, like, so I love what I heard you say is I tried to figure it out. And if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but didn't you start out writing one type of book and switch to?
Oh, yeah. It was an art education book.
Right. Like, oh, I'm going to write this career book. And next thing you know, it becomes this like soulful memoir connected to art. Totally. Right. So I think this happens to a lot of us, though. We start, all of a sudden we get the spark, but it hasn't coagulated in the bug fucking soup.
Yeah.
And that's a big phase of reinvention before it gets fun. And you were, I can't remember where in bug soup you were, but you were either approaching or, navigating that spark that September. But I do know the next winter you were bug soupy.
Oh yeah. I was probably in September, I was aware that something was off. Like I knew, was it back in 2000 or early 2020, I knew, I was like, this isn't funny anymore. So I was like, I knew something was off, but then COVID distracted me. But then I was like, there's something not right. But I felt like I'm starting to kind of circle it. I'm starting to realize that I've had this lifelong love of self-development. I mean, I'm constantly trying to fix myself. Like that's all it was. But I started to realize like, oh, it's not I started to say in different trainings and stuff, that I'm not teaching about the art, or I'm not learning about art. I'm learning about myself through my engagement with the art. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, that's what it is. Like that art is a tool for us to learn about ourselves better. That art is a way for us to find ourselves and see ourselves. And so there was this idea that like that art was that. At the same time as me going, I have this freaking business that I'm like, don't feel aligned with anymore.
But it's making a lot of money and it just bought me a house and I have a team of people that I pay their salaries and their, right? Like, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was definitely oh shit. And I think at that retreat, I had just laid off 2 people. If my timing
is right. And these are people that you cared about too, because we talk about gardener versus machine. And listen, I think a lot of reasons certain businesses, quote, succeed is because people are so blocked off from their caring selves that they just make these really hard decisions. And, I've had to make those decisions too. And, but we also want to work with people. And so I just honor how complex that is. And when you say laid off, it's not like, oh, I just made this decision to make more money. I just went through this with Amber, right? Like I care about her as a human and she's done great work for me and it's been a good partnership. And you had those kind of things too. But then not all of a sudden, because I think we think about it for a lot more. That's the other thing, Cindy, that I was thinking about, people on the outside don't get to see all this process. They don't get to see, it looks like a really fast decision. And of course you're not going to tell your team, like, I'm thinking about changing businesses, so next thing you know, they're worried for 9 months. But looking back, it's like you said you knew at a certain time, but it takes a while to process through that, to meet our fears and anxieties, to be with the discomfort of it. Those confident moments where we pull the string of decision do not come as easy as they appear to the outside world.
Oh yeah. That was one of the hardest things that I ever did because, I knew that the business, like we weren't sustaining the money from COVID and I was relying on this August launch to like, okay, we're going to have the August launch and then everything will be fine. Mm-hmm. But looking back, I'm like, oh, there were all these universe messages. Like you need to do this, think about this. You need to and it was just like, that one was like the last one. It was like, if they always say the universe is louder and louder, and it wasn't. That August launch did like worse than probably my one in 2017 where I quit my job, and I was just like, oh shit, like I have to do something now, and And then I felt, it was like, I felt guilty, riddled with guilt for probably 6 months after, at least. I mean, I still, if I allow myself to think about them and the way things were, I'm tearing up again, because it's like, I felt so guilty. And I failed them. I failed, the teachers that I work with. Like I couldn't be successful enough for them. Like there were so many people that failed myself, and I had this goal, and now it's like, I've done all this work to build this thing. And then it's like, oh God, there's so many feelings. So it's like, it took me a long time to sort of like allow myself to consider like a new path.
First of all, I hear and notice your tenderness and your care and your affection. And it's, I can hear, and I'm going to call it a part. You and I have that language. I hear a part, right, that calls those things failures. Because in the very typical narrows of the plastic box in the Container Store, it looks like a failure, but you weren't leaving that because it was a failure. You were leaving that because the you now was calling you.
Yes.
And that's the same phrase I told when my boss at the other company, and I left and came back. And when she said, why would you leave everything I've done for you? And why would you leave 100,000 agents at your beck and call? I was like, I'm not leaving you. I'm going towards me. And so it's almost easier when something is miserable and horrible and you hate the people, because it's like, fuck you, I'm out of here. Right. Which is very different from having the courage to that good to great thing, to go from something good that perhaps it's proof it is still good out there. You've just found ways to manage it and run that business and give your soul to something that was demanding. I call it the thing you can't not do.
Yeah, right? It was demanding, and it was, it doesn't, knowing that too helps. But it's still, those feelings are still there.
Of course it is.
Like,
because you live in the wild edges of being human.
Yeah.
And so being an artist, which you always were, but taking that title back as a part of your identity. And that's what I wrote down this morning. I wrote reinvention. I wrote desire, shifting, self-permission, clarity, making moves. Then all of a sudden the protective parts and fears and rational things come out. And we've got to sort with them through months. I do think there's an interesting thread, and for time's sake, I'll just want to highlight it, but the thread of neurodivergence and discovering your ADD. Like when I hear you telling your stories, I'm hearing similar to mine. And now I know that through my education about ADHD in women, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. But while we're in it, we're going, something's wrong with me. Why can't I sustain it? Like, why do I love something for 6 months? And and whether that's conscious or subconscious, that is a heavy burden that we're carrying. And so it does come with that word of failure on it. And yet now you're working within the strengths of those things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that reinvention to I am an artist. Okay. I am an author.
Yeah. So I started the program. We were talking about the Art Connection Circle, which was my kind of playground of figuring this out, where I'm showing a small group of people, and we look at art and we talk about it and we talk about our feelings through it. And I saw that I left that last session going, this is what all of this was for.
Yeah.
And I was like, this has been calling me the whole time. The feelings I've been having through art my whole life, all of these feelings have been leading me to this. And so like that my first circle ended in, it was right before I went to the camp last year. And so I was like, okay, this is this is the direction I need to go. As scary as this is, I'm going to put art class curator and kind of my membership side on sort of a kind of a maintenance mode. And I'm going to put my full attention on following the breadcrumbs of what this is. And so that's when I started working on my book. And I joined Heather's writing practice, like, I think from the hotel room at camp or immediately when I got home, like it was, it ended on Thursday and Friday. I like show up to writing practice. Nobody's there. I was like, I joined. And she's like, we didn't have it today because of camp. I was like, oh, okay. But I immediately was like, okay, I knew that, like, I have been formulating this idea of art my whole life. And I was ready to like really put it down on paper. But I was like, I didn't believe I necessarily could write the book because I'd been trying for a couple of years, and it was just like, I'd write it for a few days. And then I 3 months later, I'd write a little bit more. And then, it was like, there was no consistency. And so I made the decision that I had to, if I was going to do this, which I felt very much like I had to do it. It wasn't like, I just want to write a book. It was like, I have to write this book. And I didn't know why I had to write it. I just knew I had to write it. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I have to be consistent. And so I joined that writing practice knowing that would give me the accountability. And I just made the decision that I would come every single time. And it would be the priority, and that I would not miss a session unless I absolutely had to. Well, at the time I missed Wednesdays because they were just too early, but I would go to every time that I had committed to. And then, sure enough, a book started getting written when you actually work on it.
It's amazing what happens when you do small, boring practice every single day.
1 hour a day. That's all it took was 1 hour a day. Like, I didn't work on it any other time. It was just during writing practice.
Yeah.
But during that time, it was transformational because it was like, I was slowly figuring out what the book was. At first, the book was like half an art education book, because I was still kind of trying to stay in the teacher world. And then it was half memoir type thing. And then, like, the more I worked on it, especially when I started working one-on-one with Heather, it became full memoir. Because all along, like, when I created the Art Connection Circle and when I started writing this book, like, I kept thinking, how do I show people this rather than how do I tell them it? Like, I could tell people all day the power of what magic can happen when you look at a work of art. But if they don't experience it for themselves, they don't see what it's like telling them is nothing, giving them stats.
We got to give them the experience.
So ultimately what the book is now it shows them. But so I was doing that, writing every day, and I was realizing what transformation that was for me. And then, but really, like, around that same time that I was in the bug soup trying to figure out this program, I had this very clear download that I need to make art. It was a few days before Christmas, and it was a few months after your retreat where we made art. But it was like, it was just so clear, and it was undeniable that I have to make art. My first instinct was, you can't make money doing that. That was my first instinct. And then I was like, that's not what art's about. And so, but I was so, I had made art since I was in my early 20s, probably.
Yeah.
And I was like terrified because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I had enough ideas. And I had been looking at art in my career for the last, more than 20 years, and all this great art. And I'm like, there's no way I can make art as good as that. And how could I ever? And then I'm like, well, that's not what art's about either. It's not about so I was just like,
all the little protectors come up that want to keep you safe. And they have so many different voices, and whether it's you can't make money or you're not good enough. And those protectors are there to do a job because they're afraid for you. They mean well, but Yeah. And so I kind of I did make a painting almost right away because I had a friend who was having a divorce party and I made her a painting, and that was fun. But then I did not make any art for a good 8 months. But I was like, I made an art studio, and then I ordered supply. I spent a very long time not doing it until I was like, well, I need to figure this out. And then I was like, a few months into writing practice, I was like, okay, this is working. I was like, what if I did the same thing I'm doing with writing practice,
with art. And so I was running our connection circle and I added in a art making time, a weekly art making time where I was like, at very least I will do it during that hour and a half every week. And it was like that forcing myself to do it.
Yeah.
Made me realize,
let me shift that. So you didn't force yourself. And I'm pulling in these threads that, we've talked about in different programs. You set up an accessibility plan. You set up nourishing practices. You set up containers that would support you. You didn't have to shame yourself or beat yourself up into doing it. You didn't have to kick your ass into doing it, which are all very coachy things. You set up, you habit stacked. You saw one habit that worked and you're like, oh, let me recreate this for something else I want to do.
Yeah. Okay. And I wrote it somewhere. Right. There's a list somewhere, but I wrote down like everything that works about writing practice. And it was like the commitment to a time, the community element, the choice to only work on my book during that hour. Like I could just be like, oh, I'm going to write an email today. I'm like, no, I only allowed myself to work on my book during that hour. And like, so it was like, I figured out all the things that worked. And then I'm like, okay, let's just see if I can do that with art. And then once I started making it, it was just like it was like coming home to me, being back who I was when I was a kid. And like, I'm going to start sobbing because it was the same way with writing the book. Like Heather at one point was like, what do you think about poetry? And I was just like, I immediately just like freaked out and started like sobbing because I was like, that's the same thing. I was like, I used to write poems too when I was a kid. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm making art and writing poems. I'm like, this is who I was when I was 11, Yeah. And then it was just like that around the same time of like, I realized I was a writer probably about 6 months into writing practice. I just had this like flash of like, oh, I'm a writer. And like, it was amazing. And I was sobbing. And then a few weeks later, I was like, what if I call myself an artist? And I was like, well, I can't do that. I'm not an artist. So I made artist my word of the year for this year. And so and
you've been doing updates about, I'm a big believer in our identity is underneath the way we behave. And it can go subconsciously. And so we behave to the identity that is already there. Or if we want to create a new result, we have to adopt the identity underneath the behaviors, right? And so writing showed you that. And then again, habit stacking or practice stacking, right? Repetition, time on task, people. I love your dreams, but if there's no practice, sorry. So then it's like, oh, I am making art. I'm becoming an artist. I am an artist. And I don't remember what day it was, but I remember you showed up one day and just made that declaration. Like, I just am.
But it's still, it's May now when we're recording this. And like I was at a thing last week at my yoga studio and we were talking about art or something art came up or whatever. Oh, I said I used to want to be a Disney animator. And then she was like, are you an artist? And I was like, I had this like catch in my chest and I was like, yes, I am. But it felt like, it was just like, still not 100%. But I have those feelings of like, okay, I'm not being productive. When I'm making art, I'll be like, I'm not being productive enough. I'm not working on my business enough. And then I have some of the people say to have like an alter ego who's like the identity that you want to be. And I do have one, but it's like, there's an artist I love. Her name is Swoon. And she's a real artist. She's fantastic. And I was like, would Swoon be upset? Would Swoon be judging herself for making art because she's not productive enough? No, because she's an artist. This is what she does. And I was like, I'm always like, what would Swoon do?
Those mechanisms are good. Like we can use those as a weapon or we can use those as a bridge. And I do think there are times when someone said this the other day jokingly, and they were like, oh, what would Allison do? And in that context, I was like, yeah, that's actually a really good thing for you because I do a lot of things that people aren't willing to do and they want the results that I have. And a lot of it is the invisible work, right? And so I think those kinds of, for some reason, the word I want to use, it may be totally wrong, but those kind of schemas that we can do when we can use them to support ourselves on the journey of reinvention, because it does not happen like a light switch. There are so many parts that get up and start part. That's what they're going to do. And so I love it, right? Like, no, that's what we do. The other thing I hear in your story that feels familiar, but sometimes I'm too close to mine, but as I'm witnessing, that 11-year-old girl knew she was an artist, and she would have identified it. And life, I think there's a Picasso quote that's very common, but it says art, washes the dust. There goes I lifted my arm, and it is.
Oh, no.
Hold on.
Headphone issues.
Don't play music on our podcast. That would be illegal. Okay.
It's every child is I know there's two quotes. I love the dust one, but there's every child is an artist. It's that freaking quote's even in my book. It's something about like remembering to be one or something like that.
That one I'm not as familiar with as the art dusting the dust
art washes the dust off of everyday life. Yeah.
Yes. And everyday life, and then especially adulting, and as we accumulate parts, the coping skills, it does get pushed aside. But I think the artist was always there. Through your practices and your you uncovered your true nature. And and I've had loving arguments with people who are like, well, I can't do that. Everybody is innately creative. Yes, there are certain skills, and some of those skills we can learn, and some people have natural inclinations. And then there are the few people that have just these really wild gifts, but everybody has creativity as the core of their being.
Yeah. And one thing I really realized too is like, I thought making art was you have an idea of what you want to make, and then you make the thing that you came up with in your idea. And I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I can't. One, I'm very not visual. People always think I'm visual because I'm I'm an artist and I study art my whole life, but I'm not visual. Like in my head, I don't see things. I feel things. And so it's like, I don't see a thing in my head. I can see like glimmers of things, but like, I don't have ideas for like what it should be. And then if I did have an idea, I don't know how to like actually make it happen. But then I was like, who taught me that? Because some artists do that. But then most artists, that's not how they make art. They make art more intuitively, or they just, and I was like, why did I think I had to do that? And so when I started just showing up, I decided to use an art journal because I was like, I need something really really easy, low stress that, there was no pressure. And I got like every supply I could possibly ever want, because I didn't even know what I even like to do anymore or what I could, So I just had all this stuff, and I was like, well, I'm just going to start making stuff and just see what happens.
Experimentation.
And then I realized, oh, wait, just like with writing, like I learn, the art becomes what it becomes through the process. Yes. And like you said in one of our coaching calls one time, the process reminds me of what's true. And I wrote it on a note card. It's on my art table because I'm like, it's all like since I started making art last year, if I've ever tried to like direct it in any sort of way, like I want to make an artwork about this. Like I cannot do it. I have to just start making stuff. And sometimes they do end up with meanings. A lot of them do. I usually end up putting quotes and things, but like it never comes from, I want to make an artwork for that quote. It's, I make an artwork and this quote fits that. And so then I add the quote. Yes. And it's all about just like, what do I do next on this artwork? Okay, I put this color down. Well, what would look good next to it? Okay, and then what would I do after that? It is completely process.
Yeah, it's a relationship with the materials and your intuition and your body and your like, sometimes the page asks for something, and sometimes your body asks for something, and sometimes your brain asks for something. And it is, I really dove in to that with the expressive arts. In that way. And it was interesting because one of the ways Chris Seidel, I'm going to have her on shortly to record with her next week. Actually, we'll probably talk about the creative process at some point because she's also a process expert. You're a process expert. And the process does remind me of what's true. And the process also reminds me that I can trust myself. But it has been helpful. Some people say it sounds so negative, but it is helpful for me to understand that the systems of society do not want me to trust the process. They want me to hit the buy now button for immediate satisfaction.
Yeah. And I just realized too, while you were talking, that I had not realized before until just this minute, and I can't believe I haven't. But the parts of the time when I was doing my business and enjoying it the most were times when I was in the process, when I was building the website, when I was writing the blog post, when I was like, oh, what do I do next? That sounds fun. Let's do that next. And it was when I started to become results focused, where I have to reach this number, where I have to like systematize. That's when I lost it. That's when I lost the love for it.
Right.
When it became about the results.
I'm making up an imaginary scenario, but how many people, especially in the personal development world, go, oh, I did it wrong. Let me spend another $30,000 with this person who can help me do it right. And I get it, man. It is hard. We have bills to pay. You are big breadwinners in our households.
Yeah.
And we have legitimate responsibilities. And so we've chosen to combine something we love with, and I think there are pros and cons to creating a business out of something you love. They say you'll never work a day in your life. I don't think that's true. I think it's the hard we choose, and there's a lot of delight in it, but there is the edges of it, and some of the frameworks are a pain in the ass and they need to be done.
Yeah.
But my recent reinvention, and a client asked me a couple weeks ago, and she is also a coach and trainer, and she has the skills. And she looked at me and said, how on earth are you able to make this decision? Because she gets the financial potential implications. And I said 3 things. 1, you have 2 of. We both have the time on task and the skill. We have the coaching skills and the marketing skills, the creating client skills. I said, but the thing that I have done that I don't think that you have is you may have had some insights about the parts work, but you have not done the practice. Like every single day I do writing practice. Every single day I do some form of parts practice. And what I mean by the practice is, does it look the same? It's very much like the writing process or making art. It's like, open the page. What's here? What needs to be connected with, right? What needs to be felt? It's very much, maybe I'm having an insight. Maybe that's why I like IFS so much, is because it is, instead of a psychology insight, it gives me the ongoing process, and the process builds self-trust and support. And so,
and with
everybody
IFS,
run out and go find a process and start practicing. Don't worry about becoming an expert. Just practice and watch what happens.
Yeah, because I think about, like, you talk about anxiety, and it's like, now it's like, they're there, anxiety, I see you, you say, and then before it might have been, how do I get rid of this anxiety? And so, like, that, they're there, I see you. That's the process. Getting rid of the anxiety. That's the result. Yeah. And it's like, the more you push towards the result, it's like then the anxiety is just like, no, I'm gonna flare up even worse.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna make your life hell. Because you're not listening to me,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start to wrap up. Thank you for sharing all these stories, and thank you especially for the tender moments. And I love that those came out, because we see people making these kinds of changes, and you and I made our changes kind of publicly. Some people go away for a while and they come back different. And you and I were like, it seems like we get off a phone call and we implement, but there's been so much bug soup pre-work behind the scenes done. And so here you are, you did show up at camp last week. You had, not only had you completed your book, you also completed that art journal. That was an interesting timing. So talk about that, and then what's on the horizon in the next couple of months for you.
Okay. Yeah.
In this reinvented, because you are an artist, you are a writer, you are an author, and this is who you be today.
Yeah. Yeah. From camp last year to camp this year, I had started, I finished my first draft the day before I left for camp. And then my art journal, I finished the last page at camp, like while we were, like I was, and it was just, I look at it, and this is the last chapter of my book too. It's just like, I finished these two things, simultaneously created these two things, while deeply embedded in the process of creating those two things, and then becoming the person who can create these two things. And so what's next is like, honestly, I don't even know what's next. Like, I just know that I'm on the right track. I know that I don't know how, it's not like, yay, I reinvented myself and now I'm making the same money I was making. That's not happening.
But you are going to wake up Monday, or not Monday because it's a holiday, but you are going to wake up Tuesday morning and come to writing practice.
Oh, 100%.
And you're going to make art on Tuesday, right? I remember Bill saying, he was like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to writing practice. And he was like, you just published your book. My book was published, I think, December 8th. And on December 9th, I went to writing practice. And he was like, and I was like, I'm a writer. I go to writing practice.
Yeah, I'm not ever going to not go to writing practice. I have a lot of book ideas. I can't wait to market the book. I think that, and I have so many ideas for how to take the book and experiment with ways of creating programs and speaking and different things. So it's just, I'm going to keep following the feeling of what I'm being called towards.
Yeah.
And because that really has been, it's been calling me my whole life. I think that I'm not a religious person, but I do feel like there is a me inside that has been pulling me gently along my whole life. And so I'm just going to keep following that. I really don't know what it looks like. And that is weird because I have been always so results driven, but now I'm like, no, the process is going to lead me to whatever it is. And
I love this. And I love, it's kind of like, even though there are going to be two different topics of podcasts, this is like part one, and we're getting to see some of the story of your process. And we'll be pausing here, on this day. And, I know some of the behind the scenes of the things you're going to go to get your book edited and then proofed, and the exterior design. And then, there's a lot more steps that require your work and your effort. And then also, as you said, you're developing, I asked you to come and do an art and self session with my clients at camp. And because you do enjoy speaking and facilitating the magic of, in the same way Heather brings haiku, I'm going to have Heather on too. Heather brings haiku and gives everybody 3 words, and everybody has the same 3 words. But there are 30 different poems, and everybody looks at the same piece of art, but there are 30 different experiences within those humans that do that. And so I think it's going to be really fun, not just the result of the outcome of your book, but kind of also to catch up on the process and how, when you show up for yourself every day, in whatever ways work for yourself. And the other thing you said, following the feeling, and I love that you didn't say just following the feel good. The core feeling does feel good, but it is not without a bunch of fuckery and fear and anxiety and overthinking. Those parts are gonna part. Because if you had to wait until you weren't afraid or weren't doubtful, we wouldn't be here today. So it's a both and thing. So I don't even know if you made that distinction, but you're like, I followed the feeling. And it's like, okay, so the feeling took me through bug soup. The feeling took me through letting people I love go in my business. The feeling took me to these decisions in my life that were not easy.
Yeah.
I just had this like the bro marketers that says, this is really fucking fun. Quit your job and reinvent and follow this 7-step program. No,
so
welcome to the Messy Club, y'all.
Yeah. I had the same discussion last week, and it was about fear. And I was like, I have a lot of fear about this thing. And it's like, my therapist was like, fear is either, what did she say? Fuck everything and run. I don't know if that's exactly, it feels like something she would say, or face everything and rise. And I was like, yeah, there's fear. But that fear is not coming from a place of like, the fear is not coming from a dangerous place. It's coming from a like, oh, this is really exciting, but it's really scary. But they feel exactly the same as if I'm, so it's like, there's, if I were to follow the good feeling, then I don't think I could have done any of this, because it was like, most of this was not.
Well, when you show up and do the practice, I also think if I put it in a parts perspective, when you show up and practice, and there are many days when all of us in practice, like, well, it's like, this is amazing. It's for the rest of my life. And I call it the hate your boyfriend phase. Like, this is fucking horrible. I hate it. I can't believe it. I mean, everybody has, whether it's a day or a season in this. What I'm finding as I look back kind of, under the IFS lens, is showing up with time on task builds trust in the parts. Otherwise, we're overthinking in our head. But when we when we commit our body to be in the physical, mental, emotional, creative practice every single day, that builds trust. So you know how to be with your fear, however she shows up. You know how to be with her as she's excited, but you also know if you wake up at 2:00 in the morning with a panic attack, which that's not something I've ever heard you say that you've done. So I just made that up out of the blue, but you also know how to be in the process with that too.
Yeah.
Process people. Be in process, value process. The world is going to tell you to hit the buy now button and just become somebody whose identity is, I'm a process partaker. Okay. Any last words from here? This has been fun. I always love just talking about these things with you. And I appreciated your recognition. I was in a meltdown mode, and Cindy looked at me and she goes, "Oh, you're reinventing now." Because I told her as she went through. And so now I can see it, but I couldn't see it at the time. I was like, what's the quicksand going on underneath me? Oh, reinventing.
Yeah. Like, I remember there was a point. Yeah. You told me I was in bug soup, and then I looked at you one time. I was like, oh, she's in bug soup. Last words. I don't know. I guess, process. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll put all the traditional things in the show notes, but your website is
artandself.com.
artandself.com.
On Facebook and Instagram. If you type in Cindy Ingram with Art and Self, you'll find me. And then I also have a podcast, Art and Self with Cindy Ingram. And if you're an art teacher, then go to Art Class Curator. But I don't know if I've got any art teachers.
You never know, but I don't know that my audience is art teachers. That would be really fun if it was. But yes, artandself.com, on the socials, the podcast. She does really interesting podcasts where she gives her guests the experience that she's talking about, right? So she doesn't just talk about the art. You have I was a guest once and I didn't know what pieces she was going to show up. So it's fun because something different comes up for every single different person. Yeah. Thank you so much for spending time and sharing your heart and showing your work on this podcast today.
Thank you.